Here's Goodnight Olive making her move to take the lead by a head around the far turn. Race Kane has nearly 10 lengths to make up, so does Scooby Quando, verifying the leader. Top of the stretch, Tapit Trice is coming onto the outside. Up to the mark is running late behind Master of the Seas. Set piece down the center of the course. Master of the Seas alongside Annapolis. Here's Elusive Princess coming after Maj, and Mission of Joy tries to find room between that pair. Maj has the lead. Mission of Joy second, Elusive Princess third. The champ in front. Goodnight Olive chased all the way. Tapit Trice! Tapit Trice wins the Toyota Bluegrass.
And welcome in, everyone. It's the Keeneland Look Ahead podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Plonk from Horse Player Now. My 32nd meet with Keeneland. It's going back to the fall of 2008. And I went back and looked today. The opening day card that I covered in fall of 2008, one of the winners that day was Forever Together. And it seems like we've been forever together since. Over the past 16 years. So the Keeneland Look Ahead, I believe in our third season of doing the podcast here with video style, we're going to go through the entire program for you from a handicapper's point of view. There'll be some news and some notes and certainly some betting strategies thrown around, but we want to get into the nuts and bolts of the handicapping here and also talk about the strategy, how to look at the racing card. Some big changes at Keeneland for this upcoming spring meet. Of course, first post on Friday will be 1 o'clock. We'll be here each and every pregame night, if you will, 8:30 Eastern on the eve of every racing card. So when we have Wednesday racing, we'll start those on Tuesday nights. And again, 8:30 Eastern, you can check it out on X. You can check it out on Twitter, all the Keeneland handles, and also at Horse Player Now. And of course, pick it up in the archives anytime afterwards at your convenience. We love having you along in the evening, but if it's during the morning and you're getting ready for your handicapping before Scott and Gabby come on with Today at Keeneland, that's great too. So we're happy to have you aboard. We will look at all 10 races on the opening day card. Weather is iffy. Rain overnight tonight. It's supposed to continue into the morning hours at Keeneland. 40% chance of showers throughout the morning. Supposed to give way by the time we get the race time, so let's cross our fingers on that. But we could be looking at some wet conditions. We do have 3 turf races scheduled on 4 turf races scheduled on opening day. So we will see if they stay on the grass or not. It is going to be chilly. There's actually some snow in the forecast, perhaps in the morning. High temperatures, though, will reach the upper 40s, 47, 48 degrees by mid-afternoon. So we're not going to have snow in the afternoon, but it could be a little bit in the morning when the horses are training. Keep an eye on the conditions. Again, Scott and Gabby, and of course, the at Keeneland Racing handle on Twitter is where you're going to get your latest information on social media. 16 days, the meet here at Keeneland, and we'll be with you for each and every one of those. Let's take a look at how the card will shake out each and every day. We used to call this, we had a different name for it, but we've mixed it up now. And from the big picture, we've turned to the snapshot. So we're going to give you a look at all the races on the card in one overview. And this will give you how the 10 race card shakes out at Keeneland for opening day. The races that begin with a multi-race wager will denote those. We'll let you know where the turf pick 3s are on every card, where the stakes races are, any carryovers that might come aboard. So we've got 10 races on the program at Keeneland. Pick 5 starts in race number 1. Pick 4 is going to start in the second race on the card. I'll give you 3 key plays of the day each and every show. My key plays are in the orange here in races 4, 5, and 10. We'll discuss those as we get to each race on the program. And the pick 6 will start in race number 5, $1 pick 6 at Keeneland. That race number 5 is also going to start the Keeneland Turf Pick 3. Remember, when we come off the turf, we'll still have a Keeneland Turf Pick 3. We'll see if the races stay on the grass or not. That is the question that we'll have to all wait for until tomorrow morning and get closer to race time. Late pick 5 will start with the Lafayette Stakes. It's the first of 3 stakes races in race number 6. Late pick 4 opens in the 7th. The Transylvania Stakes co-featured on the program as part of that Turf Pick 3. The Grade 1 Ashlin, we got some wild stats for this one to talk about on the show. The Ashlin is the feature in race number 9, and then we'll wrap things up with one of our key plays of the day. We've got 2 big prices at the end of the card. If we start off a little chalky on the program, don't get mad at me, because I promise you we got some prices in races 9 and 10 to talk about. And, of course, there's rolling daily doubles and rolling pick 3s on every race on the program. And the daily double is something I want to talk about now, because the takeout for the daily double, which is the tax that's taken out of every bet in pari-mutuel wagering, has been reduced from 22% down to 15%. So a 7-point cut in the takeout. Simply what that means is the winners in the daily doubles are going to get paid more than they have in past seasons at Keeneland, and one of the lowest takeout rates you're going to see anywhere in a daily double wager. Of course, the daily double for our newbies is a winner in 2 consecutive races on the card, like a 2-team parlay if you're talking about playing in sports. But the daily double wagers with that reduced takeout become a wager you really want to focus on. So I'm going to give you some suggestions for the daily doubles and strategies, and also some horses that I like on the card. I'm not the only one who handicaps here on the program. We also get the picks from the other handicappers and the handicappers consensus at Keeneland.com. It's a good resource for us, not only to balance our opinions against, but to see where the heavy favorites might end up on a card. There are 5 handicappers in the Keeneland handicappers consensus to give you a quick look at the overview, and we'll go through each one of these races, not every line by line, but each race we'll go through. Scott Hazelton, of course, and Gabby Gaudette that you know from the simulcast feed. Pedigree expert Kim Nelson's been with us in the handicappers consensus as long as I can remember. She's batting cleanup on the end there. Tom Leach, of course, the voice of the Wildcats. Great long shot handicapper. Tom really comes up with some nice price horses as the course of the season goes on. So keep an eye on anything Tom's got at a price you give a second look at, because he's had such good luck at identifying horses at nice prices. So these are the handicappers. And when we're all agreeing on horses, you're going to see probably these horses are going to end up favorites, right? If public handicappers, 4 or 5 of them all agree on the same horse, it's probably something the public's going to dive into. On the converse, when we have races when everybody's spread out, 4 or 5 different horses picked on top, these are the great gambling races, right? Because if 5 public handicappers can get no consensus whatsoever, that means you might be looking at a decent price play in those particular races. So that's why we go through it. I'll give you my opinions. And sometimes I look at the picks of the other handicappers on the consensus grid, and I think, what did they see that I didn't? I'll go back and take a look at a horse or listen to their comments on the air during the live show to try to get a better sense of why they like a particular horse that maybe I didn't. But I always love being on that island. You've heard that many times on this podcast in the past when I've got a horse picked on top that none of the other handicappers have. That's when I love it, because I know I'm going to get a fairly decent price on those kind of horses. So without further ado, it's time to get handicapping here. If you are watching on the feed on YouTube and you want to put some comments in the channel, I'm doing everything here. I drive the bus, I talk, I'm doing it all at once. So I try to follow the comments here and there if I can. Sometimes I'll reply to them after the chat and go back in and comment. If I can follow it during the course of the show, I'll catch a question or two and maybe take them on the air. But let's get going here. Let's get handicapping. Race number 1 of the 2024 Spring Meet here at Keeneland. Starts off in Starter Allowance Company. It's about 7 furlongs, and it's a welcome back of sorts, if you will. Rick Dutrow, after his 10-year suspension of coming back to racing in 2023, he's back to Keeneland. We haven't seen Dutrow win a race at Keeneland since Court Vision way back when. I think it was about, I have it in my notes here somewhere, 2009, I believe, the last time in the Shadwell Mile. So it's been a while for Rick Dutrow, but according to the handicappers here, and myself included, I think he might come right back to the winner's circle. He's got one in here named Play Good, Pay Good, right from the rail, and I think this is the horse to beat in here. This one won for $50,000 when in the Rob Atris barn back in December at Fairgrounds. It's a starter allowance race, and a starter allowance simply means the horses can start in this race if they run for a particular claiming price or less. Well, this race is restricted to horses who have run for $50,000 or less. I want horses that ran for 50. I want them to have run for the maximum amount. And not only did they run for 50, but they won for 50. And that's what we're kind of looking at here with Play Good, Pay Good. Won a 50,000 maiden claimer at Fairgrounds. Now switches over to the Dutrow barn. And Dutrow gets Irad Ortiz Jr. to ride. I mean, that just kind of has go written all over it. I don't think it's very creative. I think horse is going to get bet in here. And I think the one Play Good, Pay Good is probably going to get the beat off to a chalky start in terms of my pick in here. Whether or not that's the winner or not, we're going to find out. But I think the one should show a little bit of pace from the inside. When this horse did fire, did show some early speed. From the rail, you want to get out there and go. 7 furlong distance here at Keeneland. You don't want to be too far off the pace. How the track's going to play, if it's wet, usually wet conditions favors horses towards the front. Even more speed plays well in the slop as the horses behind don't like the kickback hitting them in the face. Some horses just resent it, and if they make the lead and they're running well over it early, they just have that early advantage and extend it. So speed in the slop, if we get a wet track, would be a good way to go. I think Play Good, Pay Good in the opener. The 5 in here, High Fashion Kate's a horse that maybe can get a little bit of a price. Another one that I think can can be pretty forward in here. So maybe we can get the 5 in for an exacta play. As I look across the way for my other handicappers here, the ones picked on top for Tom, Scott, and I. The ladies have gone a different direction, though. The 9 for Gabby Gaudette, the 3 for Kim Nelson. So a little bit of discrepancy there, but I think we're on the favorites. The 1 is the second choice for Kim and Gabby. So I think we're looking at a solid favorite, something maybe to 5. You might be looking at 9 to 5, 8 to 5 on Play Good, Pay Good. Not wild about this one. And like I said, don't get so upset here if we've got some chalks early in the card. We've got some prices coming later, and you got to take what they give you here at Keeneland. Some races we're going to see as we look at the profile of races at Keeneland. Some races are just really chalky. For instance, you get maiden special weights going long on the dirt, and they win like 45, 46% favorites, a crazy percentage. Then you get races like the maidens on the turf, and they win at 26, 27%. So we'll talk about those different percentages. You can read that in my handicapping blog at Keeneland.com as well. But know what's out there, get a sense for what kind of races produce prices, what kind of sense of races are very trustworthy here at Keeneland, and that can help you to figure out when to take a stab, because you're not going to be stabbing every race. I mean, look, favorites going to win their share here at Keeneland. We've seen that over time. Which ones will, which ones won't. That's what we're trying to break down and try to, come up with an upset winner when we can. Let's go to the snapshot again. So the pick 5 is going to start in race number 1. So race number 2 is where we're headed next. And this is a 4.5 furlong 2-year-old race. You know this in the spring. I call them baby dashes. We talked about favorites having a good percentage in some kind of races. Well, favorites win 51% of these races over the course of 77 of them held during the dirt era here at Keeneland. Of course, the dirt was reinstated back in time for the fall of 2014 meet. So 2015 was the first spring back on dirt. We've had 77 of these baby dashes. You want horses who have workouts at Keeneland. 65 of those 77 winners were horses who had workouts at Keeneland. You don't want them coming off the farm or coming from another track. Get a little morning work over the track. And of course, it's all about Wesley Ward. He's won 41 of these 77 races, just an insane percentage. John Hancock is the second most with 9. 41 for Ward, 9 for the next most. And the third most trainer in terms of 2-year-old spring wins here at Keeneland, Mike Maker with 3. So again, you're talking Wesley Ward 41, John Hancock 9, Mike Maker 3. I mean, it's insane. So you have to start your handicapping in these 2-year-old races, obviously, with Wesley Ward. He's got 2 in here, the 9 Bostonian and the 12 Shoot It True. And as we go to the handicappers consensus grid across the way, we're all on Wesley Ward, right? It's just a matter of which Wesley Ward you want. Shoot It True, the top pick for Scott, Gabby, and Kim. Tom and I both have Bostonian. I'll tell you the tiebreaker for me when trying to separate these 2 wards, a little bit better post position for the 9. We haven't had that many races with 11, 12 entries. We talked about 77 of these races for the 2-year-olds. There's only been 18 of them when there have been 11 or 12 horses in the field. And those outside posts have no wins in the 11 and 12 holes. Again, it's not a great sample, but it's tough to win out there. So Shoot It True's got a little bit of extra work to do perhaps in here. Tyler Gaffleone rides. Gaffleone has ridden really well in these baby races over the years. So, Shoot It True could very well be the winner in here. But I'm going with the 9 Bostonian with a little bit better draw. And we've seen with Wesley Ward, do not let the jockey assignment throw you off here at Keeneland. One, he changes riders a lot from who's named. But a lot of times it's his B rider. He rides Albin Jimenez. They're like 7 for 10 together. It's insane in these 2-year-old races. So just don't look at a big name rider like Tyler Gaffleone on Shoot It True and think for sure that that's Wesley Ward's ironclad horse in a particular race. He'll fool you with who he puts on jockeys. Speaking of Albin Jimenez, he's on the 5 in here in race number 2, Jet Sweep Joe. I threw that one in there third in my picks because, again, Jimenez, 7 for 10 teaming with Ward. He's 10 for 20 in these baby races overall, so he's 3 for 10 for other trainers as well. So Albin Jimenez does a nice job in these dash races, coming around the hook there and to the wire. So I gave the 5 Jet Sweep Joe a little bit of love in there. But again, we start the early pick 4 as we go back here to the snapshot of the card. This is the second race of the pick 5. It's the first leg of the early pick 4. You don't want to go more than 2 deep in here. Settle on the 2 wards. Preferably pick one or the other. And Wesley will scratch a lot of times with one of his 2 in these baby races as well. So don't be surprised when the scratches and changes come out if the 9 or the 12 is gone. then you just lean on the other ward in this particular spot. I'm not going to try to fit a square peg in a round hole and pick against the guy who's got a 41-9 lead in the standings in 2-year-old races. Just not going to do it. Let's go to race number 3 next up, and there are no wagers opening in race number 3, but this is our first turf race of the meet scheduled. Now, I got to say, if we're going to have a race come off the turf because of the weather on Friday's card, this is probably the one. Couple of reasons. We got a stakes a little bit later, but this is a turf sprint. And turf sprints generally come off the turf faster than route races do because the gates on the back stretch, the horses are spread out. That's usually a really big field size, and they rip up a lot of course. There's a lot of divots. The whole back stretch, horses 7-8 wide down the back stretch. We're in a route race. By the time they get on the back stretch, they're really, 2-3 path? And they just kind of go single file and double file down the backstretch and don't tear up near as much of the course. So if we're going to lose one of the races on the turf on Friday, probably race number 3 would be the one. There are some good options in here. There's only 9 entered for a turf sprint, 1 for the main track. The 10 Bushido would go on the main track if they run on the main. I went with the one in here, Counter Strike, coming off the races at Turfway. I thought it was being cute. I thought it was a little bit of inside pace versatility, a horse who kind of doesn't have to be to the front, but won't be way back. But then I saw the Handicapper's consensus grid, and I thought, you're not very creative, Plonk. Counter Strike picked on top by Scott, by Gabby, and Kim as well. 4 of the 5 of us ended up on the same horse. I don't know if Counter Strike's going to be favored or not for trainer John Enos. You got some other horses in here with some class and some bigger name barns than what we have here. So maybe we can get a better price than the Handicapper selectors box tells me, but if 4 of 5 of us are all in the same default top pick in here, I thought there were good options, and I was, trying to find one around 5-6 to 1. I don't think I'm going to get that. So let's just see and shake out what the prices look like on the tote board here. Average winner in a turf sprint allowance race like this is about 7 to 1. So you do not have to settle for a short price in race number 3. If Counter Strike's bet down too low, the 9 BD Valesky becomes one I like in here. This is a jockey, Tyler Gaffleone, who rides the turf sprints at Keeneland really well. He's about 50% in the exacta when we get fields like this, 9 less, and they become jockeys races in the turf sprints, more than those big fields, which are just mad dashes. When you can think about it and there's a little cat and mouse going on in a turf sprint, Tyler Gaffleone's really good. 49% in the exacta with 9 or less horses in a turf sprint. So the 9 BD Valesky, one that I'll keep an eye on there in race number 3. Let's go to the 4th race and go back to the snapshot and see what we've got cooking here. One of my key plays on the card here. We talked about the daily double wagers, and this is something you want to focus on with that 15% takeout. You're going to get more back on your winning tickets. I think the 7 in here, Neat Trick, is an absolute standout, and I'm going to try to get this horse home in some daily doubles starting off. Across the board with our other handicappers here in race number 4. I'm the only one with Neat Trick, which I'm surprised because I kind of think this horse is going to get bet, but Gabby's got the horse second, Scott's got the horse second, and nobody else has Neat Trick in the top 3. I love this horse in this particular spot. Luis Saez, superb in 7 furlong races at Keeneland, a specialist distance for horses, but also a specialist distance for jockeys in here. He's got a $1.31 ROI, which means for every dollar you bet, you get $1.31 back. 31% profit betting Luis Saez in 7 furlong races at Keeneland. That's money to me. And Neat Trick is by Good Magic, the sire. Of course, Good Magic was a bluegrass stakes winner, but last year, Good Magic sired horses who won 31% of their races, 5 for 16 on the main track at Keeneland. So I love the pedigree. I love the rider. Neat Trick coming out of races at Gulfstream Park where he was knocking on the door. I just think it's a slam dunk for me. Neat Trick, one of my best bets of the day. Hopefully we can get 3 to 1 or so since no one else is picking the horse. I thought the horse would be solidly favored. Everybody else is kind of trying to find something maybe and get a little bit cute in here. We'll see the 9 Bells Beach, a horse by Curlin, $675,000 facing Tipton purchase. I don't know if Bells Beach is going to take money as a first-time starter, but I prefer my horses to have some experience in these kind of races going 7 furlongs, first-time starters. So Bells Beach, I'll let that one beat me if he's good enough to do so, if she's good enough to do so. Of course, you always have to respect Irad and Chad when they team up in here. Hopefully that one takes some money but needs a race and isn't quite up to the 7 furlong test. Let's go back to the snapshot here as we go for race number 5. So we've got our key play in race number 4, right? Is a key play a horse who's 2-3 to 1 to bet to win? Not necessarily with Neat Trick. So I'm looking at the daily double, And because we've got a 12-horse field in race number 5, I'm hoping this race can stay on the turf. We've got a big field of 12 in here. This is an upset category of races. So I'm trying to get a key play for me to races 4 to 5 because I've got a horse I love in race number 4. I don't think he's going to be a huge price to bet to win. But in race number 5, we've got a big field size, and we got the best profile for long shots at Keeneland of any division of races. Turf route maiden special weights. Favorites win just 24.9%, less than 25%. Average winner in these races is almost 7-1 odds. So you can price shop a little bit in race number 5. And the key to these maiden specials on the turf and the spring meets has been Gulfstream shippers over the years. I'm looking for the Gulfstream horses to do it again. At a mile and 3/16, the class should come out. And there's a handful of Gulfstream horses in here, 3 of them that I'm going to use in my key plays. The 11 Swans Cove, the 10 Talonade, and the 2 Spinning Class. So in my key play of the day, as we go back and we look at races 4 to 5, we're going to look at that top pick number 7, Neat Trick in the Daily Double in race number 4 to the 11, 10, and 2 in race number 5. I'm going to take all 3 of those Gulfstream horses and try to bank on one of those getting to the winner's circle. And look at the names of the trainers here. Mott, Motion, and McGahee. You got the 3M, if you will, of Keeneland turf trainers. That's pretty darn good. Mott, Motion, and McGahee on the turf at Keeneland in a mile and 3/16. I feel good about one of those 3 punching it home. I don't think any of the 3 necessarily has to be the favorite in this particular spot. There'll be some other horses who might take a little bit of action in here. So let's hope that we can get a little bit of a price here on one of those 3 and get the biggest of the 3 home amongst my key plays of the day in a race number 5. Again, now if this race comes off the turf, now we're kind of like searching around here in a different ball game, right? Now you're looking for horses who are main track only types. There's nobody entered main track only. And if you look at the running lines in the form in race number 5, there's not a lot of, any dirt form to speak of. They're all horses who have run on synthetic or turf or the first-time starter Capodanno down on the rail. I wouldn't want a first-time starter going that far from the rail. So, look, you have to completely just toss the race, and you're not looking at a key play if this race comes off the turf. But again, on the turf, we're looking at the 11, 10, and 2, all horses that I think have a big, big chance in race number 5. Okay, to the 6th race we go next up. It's the Lafayette Stakes, the first of 3 stakes races on the card. It'll also kick off the pick 5. Forgot to mention in race number 5, that's the first leg of the pick 6. The Keeneland Turf pick 3 will also start there. Pick 6, a $1 bet at Keeneland with the carryover provision, not a jackpot bet. Traditional pick 6, but a $1 minimum. The Keeneland Turf pick 3 is a $3 bet, so low takeout on that, but a $3 minimum on the Keeneland Turf pick 3. You can expect a couple $100 in returns on those Keeneland Turf pick 3s when you take those down. 6th is the Lafayette, kicks off the late pick 5. Will include 3 stakes races there. The Lafayette Stakes is a 7-furlong sprint for the 3-year-olds. And I think we've got a future star in the sprint ranks here. Number 1, Doncho, or number 3, Doncho. Number 3 in the program, number 1 to the winner's circle, hopefully. Doncho, my top pick, as well as Scott's in here. Michelle Lovell trains back-to-back big efforts at Fairgrounds. This horse has gone 9 and change twice in 6-furlong sprints. Brought up the right way, the maiden race, then to the allowance. Now they go to a listed stakes. There wasn't this urge to just throw to the wolves right away. And I think that's good, savvy training by a trainer, Michelle Lovell, who's not one to run horses in all the big races around the country. She's going to have horses who sustain their careers and run well into their, elder years in her barn if she's going to be successful as a trainer. She doesn't just get all the top 6-figure horses every year at the yearling sales, replenishing her stock every 2-3 years. So Michelle Lovell's taking good care of Doncho to this point, and I think this horse has a big, big future. Now, he's going to have to be a runner because Booth is good in here, and Booth is also the top pick for Tom and Gabby in this spot. Booth is my second choice. And then Glenn Gary's in this race, a horse who won a stakes race here, the Bowman's Mill. Last year, again, we talked Luis Saez, really good 7-furlong pilot. There's a lot to like about Glenn Gary. This is a good race, but I think Doncho could be a great horse. And a great horse wins against this competition, I think, although there is respect for Booth and Glenn Gary in this particular spot. I love the 6 in here. I think this is a horse that you want to try to get to in daily doubles. Races 5 to 6, we talked about using those 3 horses in race number 5, the 11, the 10, and the 2. We were matching them up with the single in race 4. We're going to match them up with the single in race 6 as well. So you want your daily double in this spot, 11-3, 10-3, and 2-3 from races 5 to 6. And I think Doncho is the one to beat here in race number 6, the Lafayette Stakes. Seventh race on the card starts the late pick four, and the pick four is on Friday. We have a $200,000 guaranteed pool, so pick four action getting underway in the seventh as we get a little respite from the stakes races late in the card. This is a 6.5 furlong allowance sprint in this spot. I went with Wesley Ward and Sam's Treasure. This horse is coming off a layoff. That's not that big of a deal. You know, we study the profiles of these horses at Keeneland. There are some particular races where horses coming off long layoffs have a history of running very well. Allowance sprints like this is one of them. We've had 20 of them at 6.5 furlongs here in the database. 8 of those 20 winners, going back to the beginning of the return to dirt, 8 of those 20 winners were making their first start of the year. Last year, we had 5 such races like this. 3 of them were won by horses making their first start of the year. So fresh horses off layoffs come back ready to roll in these kind of races. So I'm not afraid of the layoff with number 4, Sam's Treasure. You get John Velasquez, Wesley Ward teaming up in here. Potent connections. I think he'll be ready to go. Gets the LASIK. So I'm on the 4 in here, Sam's Treasure. Now, there's an interesting horse in here. If you were here for October 15th at the fall meet, you saw the biggest long shot to win at Keeneland since at least the beginning of our database back in 2006. That's Cozy Rags, the one. Debuted a winner at 88-1 odds. Again, the longest shot winner we had since I helped create the polycapping database. And of course, it's just the Keeneland handicapping database now because the polytrack's gone. But we created that database in the fall of 2006. Dating back to the fall of 2006. When I came aboard in 2008, we retrofitted it to the races that had already been run. No horse was a bigger long shot than Cozy Rags. So if you want lightning to strike twice, he doesn't owe you anything. But I just thought that's an interesting nugget to throw out there on Cozy Rags. I don't think he wins this particular spot coming out, or she does, coming out of some stakes races at Turfway. She does drop in class a little bit into the allowance company. But horse for course at Keeneland is a real thing. It's as real as any racetrack in America. So you're not going to get 88-1 probably again, but Cozy Rags, an interesting one to talk about here, at least in the 7th race. Let's see what the other handicappers have in the first leg of the late pick 4. This is one of those races with not a lot of agreement in here. You got 2 for Roswell, you got 2 for Legoderma, and I've got Sam's Treasure in this particular spot. Nobody else has Sam's Treasure in the top 2 except Kim. Scott's got a top 3 pick in there. So we might get a middling price here. We might be looking at a nice 4-5-1 on Wesley Ward, John Velasquez, horse coming in fresh, like all of that, like every bit I hear about that. Roswell, certainly some respect for that one, coming off a second place finish at Gulfstream last time. Could be a big opening weekend for Bill Mott. I think he's got a shot to win a couple races here. It's Into Mischief, Acoma. What a great pedigree. Acoma was so good here at Keeneland back in the Polytrack era. Roswell comes out of a race when running second to Launch, who came back to win the Any Limit Stakes at Gulfstream in her next start. So she comes out of a good race. 4, 10, and 9, the way I've got them lined up here in race number 7. Again, the 3 gets some love from my handicapping brethren, and number 10, Roswell, obviously gets some love as well. Okay, let's go to the 8th race next on the card, and this is our second of 3 stakes races. It's also the second leg of the Keeneland Turf Pick 3. Race number 8 is the Transylvania Stakes for 3-year-olds on the grass at 1 mile and a 16th. We've got a horse in here named Musical Act coming in for the first time from overseas. Charlie Appleby trains this Godolphin color bearer. Frankie Dettori, the world-renowned rider. He won 2 races here during the spring 2023 meet. Dettori's back in town to ride Musical Act. Tom Leach, the voice of the Wildcats and of Keeneland Select, he caught up with the assistant trainer for Musical Act earlier this week and gave us a little bit of intel on this runner. Here's Chris Durham, assistant trainer for Musical Act, starter here in the Transylvania Stakes.
Chris Durham is the assistant to trainer Charlie Appleby for the Godolphin string here at Keeneland. Let's talk about Musical Act in the Grade 3 Transylvania presented by Keeneland Select, and what you like about what you've seen out of him preparing for this race.
He's done really well. He's eating, drinking very well, and Salim Golan, who rides him, is very happy with him. He did a little blow this morning, which will be his last bit, and hopefully we can do the business on Friday.
And the condition of the turf course, not really a big concern if it's a little off firm?
I don't think so, but we'll know on Friday, you know. We wanted to get on it yesterday, but obviously with the way the weather was, we couldn't get on it.
You all walked it and thought it was pretty firm.
We all thought it was okay, yeah, to go on. But obviously the weather, you know, and we couldn't get on it. But we had a look at this morning. It looks okay. It can dry out here.
when he's at his best, musical act, what do you see in this horse? What is something that's an indication that he's at his best?
Look, he's a progressive sort of horse. The team was happy with him in Dubai. He improved, and we're hoping for a good run.
And you, as far as his personality or just his physical makeup, anything that's changed from last year to this year?
Well, he's been gelded, so that can bring him forward from being gelded.
Can it kind of calm some horses down?
It calms the horses down, and he seems well chilled now. Where before he was a bit of a colt, a bit of a lad. So he's doing well.
Thanks to Tom Leach for that extra intel. You can go to the YouTube page, the Keeneland official YouTube page, and get all of Tom's interviews throughout the meet. We'll try to work those into the podcast here when we can. Also, Jenny Reese from the Kentucky Horsemen's Association, the Kentucky HBPA, has done some good interviews. We're going to get some her input from her interviews coming up a little bit later in the show. I was also able to look at a couple of the questions in the chat while that was rolling. Got a chance to catch my breath and see some of your questions. Please stand by. I'm going to answer some of those here in just a bit after we give you the handicapping insights here for the 8th race, the Transylvania Stakes. Transylvania Stakes has a stakes field here. We'll get a look at the full lineup of 14 entered in here. One also eligible runner. You got horses coming from all over. You got Musical Act from overseas. You got Lord Bullingdon coming in from California. You got horses coming north. You got horses coming from all over south. They're coming from all over the country and around the world for the Transylvania Stakes. I landed on number 6, First World War. This is a son of Warfront. Warfront had 4 winners on the turf last year at Keeneland, 24% win rate. They do well here. Brendan Walsh won 5 races at the spring meet on the turf last year here at Keeneland. That tied for the most amongst any trainers. And this horse is coming in with a bullet workout here at Keeneland. So First World War, the 6, is going to be my choice in the Transylvania Stakes. And as we look across the way to the other handicappers here on the board, let's see. We've got race number 8. We got Laganos, the 3 picked on top. We've got the 6, the 1, the 9, and the 10. This is a classic race where we've got Spread City, 5 different handicappers, 5 different horses on top. This is going to be one of those races that you're going to be able to get yourself a price if you're diving into this race. So check out a nice price play if you can sink your teeth into one here. And you certainly want to spread when you're looking at the multi-race wagers, not one where you're going to knuckle down and focus on a particular horse or two. Unless you have a strong opinion, then you can separate yourself from the public. But when we're talking pick 4s and pick 5s and the various wagers that are going on late in the day here in race number 8, including the Keeneland Turf pick 3, knock on wood, if we're going to have a race that stays on the grass on Friday, this would be the one. You want to try to keep a graded stakes on the grass at all costs when you can, as long as safety is an issue, not an issue. So the Transylvania Stakes, this is a race where people are going to have to use multiple horses in this particular spot, I think. And again, our 5 public handicappers have 5 different horses picked on top in this particular spot. So good luck, handicappers. I'll try to help you out a little bit with the one I've got on top in there. But this is not one of these races that is super confident for any of us in the public handicapping realm. Let's get to some of these questions in the chat here quick as we take a look at some of the information you guys have put in the comment section. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to fire in some comments as well. People asking about whether or not we're going to be on the turf. Again, we'll have to wait and find out for tomorrow. But Tom was asking here in the chat, do you watch a few races on opening day to see how the track is playing? Yeah, I mean, generally the earlier races on a card usually aren't that attractive from a betting standpoint. There's a reason they're moved up to the front of the card. The racing office sees what's in, and, you know, a smaller field size, a heavy favorite, those kind of races generally get pushed up towards the front. So those are races I'm not super involved in gambling on anyway, right? We got the Wesley Ward low-priced horse in race 2. Those 2-year-old races are almost always first or second race on the card. We got a smaller field in race number 1 with the Dutcher horse that'll probably be a favorite. So you get a chance to watch those races and not invest much, generally on most days of the week anyway at Keeneland, because they're not the best betting races. So by the time you get into that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th race on the card, you get a little bit more sense how things might be playing. Keeneland plays the speed unless the track has been too fast. That's usually when Keeneland doesn't play to speed, it's because it's been really fast on previous days. And the maintenance crew comes in there and says, we got to slow it down. So then they'll kind of, dig things up a little bit, slow it down, because you don't want it too fast because it's not safe for the horses. So generally, when you see a slow track at Keeneland, it's in response to races that were really fast. And so that's not going to change during the course of a day. That's going to change from day to day. And if all of a sudden you're used to seeing races in 110 for 6 furlongs, they're now going 111, 112, you say, okay, this track was really slow. And when it slows down, then maybe horses from off the pace and the stamina kicks in a little bit more. One of the big things at Keeneland when it comes to quote unquote how the track is playing is the wind. You folks who have been there many times know it sits up on the hill in the field and the wind comes whipping through there. You can't emphasize this enough. Flags to the left, which means a back stretch tailwind at their back on the stretch and going down the back stretch with the tailwind. Flags to the left favors speed. Those horses get their early lead. They don't exert as much energy to do so. When they turn for home and the wind hits everybody in the face, nobody runs into it. The closers are just as discouraged as the horses up to the front, and the front runners got their early fractions, got the coast, and they take the lead into the stretch and they don't stop. So flags to the left plays to speed, flags to the right. Now the front runners have to run into the wind as they're going down the backstretch. And when they're supposed to be opening up their easy lead, they're working harder to do it. And then they run out of steam. And then when they turn from home, they all have the wind at their back. I'm tired. The horse behind me's got the wind at his back as well. And he's not tired. All of a sudden you get past in the stretch. So keep an eye on the flags at Keeneland as much as you are the racing surface itself. But yeah, I mean, could you watch a race or two and see how the track's playing? Just assume 75% of the time it's going to play to speed. That's just Keeneland. That's the way that it is. And adjust, if you see horses just dying on the front end, running out of steam on the front end, then you can make that kind of assertion in there. Who do you think will have a great meeting as a trainer that is under the radar? Cherie DeVoe, she doesn't run that many, but the horses she has had at Keeneland in recent years have been awfully good, and she's a high percentage trainer, but her horses will be well meant. As you get a little bit later in the meet, there's always a couple sneaky trainers that come along towards the end of the meet. They have some horses that weren't thought of earlier in the meet. Mike Tomlinson comes to mind. He'll have some horses later in the meet when the competition gets a little easier that sometimes they sneak by at a price. Drury does the same thing with horses a little bit later in the meet. So those are a couple names there that aren't, at the cusp. But leading trainer at Keeneland should absolutely come down to Wesley Ward, depending how many 2-year-old racers there are, and Brad Cox. It's theirs. And in terms of the leading jockeys, you got Gaffalione and Saez. They've won every riding at title at Keeneland probably for the last 6-7 years without fail. It's one of those two. And if I had to tell you right now, I'd say Saez would outdo Gaffalione. Tyler just hasn't been riding as great the past couple of weeks. I didn't think he had a good ride in the Arkansas Derby last week. And so Saez might be coming in a little bit better mental state right now than Gaffalione, the way he's been riding lately. And Keeneland's a short meet. You get off to a fast start, and that's all it takes to get on all the good horses. And, of course, Saez has Kieran McLaughlin as agent, does a good job getting him on the good horses anyway. So I wouldn't see any difference in the jockey standings. I think you're going to look at those two. Depends how long Irad Ortiz rides and how many mounts he wants to take. He could certainly be in there. Keith asked a question about what tracks do horses come from that do well at Keeneland, meaning like Turfway horses, etc. When they come here, we talked about it already. On the grass, the Gulfstream horses are obviously the strongest. Fairgrounds is getting a little bit better with that, and Gulfstream's getting a little weaker than they have been historically. They're running less turf races at Gulfstream over the last year or two with the installation of their synthetic course. So you don't get as many good horses from Gulfstream as you used to. Fairgrounds used to kind of be like, they're not going to win on the turf, but here and there, they're starting to get a little bit better in that result. Tampa Bay Downs horses do better here than you would expect. I think that's a decent spot to look for some horses, in some of the lesser ranks, but, in stakes too. I mean, we've seen horses out of the Tampa races and the bluegrass do well, but the Tampa Bay Downs horses do fairly well. The Turfway horses were better last year than they have been in some others. Again, you're looking for the right classifications there. The Turfway horses don't run well on the grass, it seems like, at all here at Keeneland, but on the main track is where you're looking for the Turfway horses on the cheaper levels. So, you get down to the starter allowances and the claimers, then the Turfway horses on the main are quite effective. So that's where you want to look for those horses. And so let's get back now to race number 9. Next up on the card here, I've got to click around a few little spots to find our schedule. Race number 9 is up next on the card. It is the Grade 1 Ashlin Stakes, and we've got a nice field of 3-year-old fillies here, including the 1, 2, 3 finishers in last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Just FYI, Jody's Pride and Candy, they're all back. Now, we haven't seen 2 of them since last year, including Just FYI. She's had some illness over the course of the year, and trainer Bill Mott admits he's playing a little bit of catch-up. We talked about Jenny Reese, the former legendary turf rider, now working for the Kentucky HBPA in their communications department. She caught up with Bill Mott. Let's take 2 minutes with Bill Mott here and hear about the champ, Just FYI.
Just FYI, the 2-year-old filly champion, unbeaten, untimely temperature she spiked before the Devona Dale, and you had to regroup with her.
Right. Well, we were forced to scratch out of the Devona Dale. She developed a fever on race day. I mean, it wasn't something that we had any suspicions of or any thoughts about before the race or before shipping down to Gulfstream. But, you know, as the day went on, our temperature went up, and by noontime we decided to scratch.
And did you immediately start thinking about the Ashland? Or are you thinking about
we already
Gulfstream
know
program?
about those things. I mean, we know what races are available and what the options are. And but number one, you hope that, you know, she gets over the virus that she had, and you know, we were lucky enough to get her back actually on track in a week's time. Had her back galloping and breezing, and we've got a couple breezes in her. And, you know, would I prefer to have another breeze in her, or breeze or two before we run? Probably, ideally, but if you're working backwards from the Kentucky Oaks and you have any visions of that in your mind, you know, you've got to go ahead and get a race in her. So we think she's doing well, and we're going to run on Saturday. But you know, I think the main thing is, you know, naturally we'd love to win the race, but we do need to get a race in her before we think about the Kentucky Oaks.
Physically, has she changed much from 2 to 3?
Well, she was a big Scopy filly at 2, and she's probably grown a little. I look at her every day, so I probably don't see it as much as somebody that hasn't seen her. But yes, I think she's grown. I think she's stretched out a little bit and filled out some.
Sense a little cautious optimism there. That's certainly how I read it. You've got to read the tea leaves when you're talking and listening with trainers. Obviously, they don't want to say anything that sets their owners off. That's who they work for. They don't want to mislead the betting public in many cases. But Bill Mott seems a little tempered there, right? And temperature being the problem with Just FYI earlier this year. I'm inclined to bet against her on Saturday or on Friday because it's a tough spot. There's some good horses in this particular spot. And folks, the Ashland has just been bonkers. That's the bottom line to it. Listen to these winning prices in the Ashland Stakes in recent years. This isn't the poly track era and the craziness. This is the dirt era. 2019, 52-1 Out for a Spin. 2016, 30-1 Weep No More. 2017, 22-1 Sailor's Valentine, and last year, 20-1 Defining Purpose. That's 4 winners of this race since 2016 at 20-1 or more. This race has been off the rails way more times than it's been formful. I'll take my chances with another price, and folks, I've got a big price in the Ashland Stakes. Let's swing the bats with a 30-1 morning line, standout sensation. I knew when I picked her I'd be on the island. I felt pretty good, and there is nobody else going to this island. Look, I know Impel is super strong. She's going to step up in class, but she looks like the real deal for trainer Brad Cox. She's the top pick for Scott, Tom, and Kim. I will not be shocked if she wins this race. We're all picking against Just FYI. I'm not going to use her in my top 3 because I think there's some other options in here that are more recent or have not had the setbacks that she's had. If she wins this race, she's a champion, no question about that, and she's going to go on to the Kentucky Oaks and be formidable in that particular spot. But Brad Cox already has Tarifa, who won the Fairgrounds Oaks last week, as the favorite for the Kentucky Oaks right now. He could have the second choice, Impel, and have a powerful 1-2 punch if she's able to win here in the Ashland. But again, this race has been pothole central for short prices over the last several years, and big prices have run roughshod. Now, why do you end up on standout sensation? Because I mentioned that filly Tarifa, right? Tarifa right now would be 4-5 in the Kentucky Oaks. Unless Just FYI or Impel do something spectacular in the Ashlin Stakes on Friday, you are looking at Tarifa as a 4-5 shot in the Kentucky Oaks. Standout sensation, 2 starts back in Allowance Company, led deep into the stretch at Fairgrounds and got beat 3/4 a length by who? Tarifa. She's got some quality about her. She's a former maiden claimer. Tom claimed her for $100,000 off of Brett Calhoun last November at Churchill. And now you're going to say, well, how's she going to win the Ashlin Stakes? The recipe to win this race is to be up near the front. Almost all of those big upset prices. Last year, we came from off the pace with the McPeak horse, but almost all those other big upsets where horses were near the front in the Ashlin Stakes. Post 2 to the inside, advantage. Blinkers on, advantage. This is the filly who's got a little early speed. She did not break last time, and the fact that she didn't break last time and rallied to run second helps her price in here. Look, I know she's taking a big step up on class, but the mile and the 16th races have a very short run to the first turn here at Keeneland. They also finish at the 16th pole finish line. So it is 2 advantages to inside speed. It adds up to me. I'm going to take a shot at standout sensation. Look, is she as good as these other horses on credentials? Absolutely not. She's never been in a stakes race, and you've got the top 3 finishers in the Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies running here. But we've seen it before in this race, and we're here to gamble. So we're going to gamble, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully everybody out there gets a little piece of her, but not too much, because I still want to get somewhere in that ballpark of 25-1 or so. And I don't think even if everybody on the podcast goes and believes me, which I don't think many of you will, but if we all go in on standout sensation, I still think she's going to be a fairly big price, because there's just too many other good options to choose in this race for the masses to fall into her. I'm on an island with the pick. I think she's going to be a price. I have a ton of respect. I think Impel is the most likely winner in this race. If it's not the 2, the 7, Impel should absolutely win this race off of her 2 races so far. She looks like the one. Brad Cox won this race with Monomoy Girl back a ways. She's not as credentialed as Monomoy Girl at this point, but she certainly has a ton of ability about her. So Impel, one to watch in here. There was also some comments from Brad Cox about Impel on that Kentucky HBPA website on the YouTube page from Jenny Reese. So if you want more information on this race, I just thought it was more pertinent to get the Bill Mott interview to you, but there is some info on Impel on that same website. So be sure to check that out on the YouTube page for the Kentucky HBPA. Okay, our other handicappers across the way here for the big one. They've got Impel on top, 3 of the 5. Helena's Forte, top choice in here for Gabby Gaudette. She'll get a decent price on that one as well. To the 10th and final we go, and as we go back and look at our snapshot of the card, we got one more orange left there, folks, and hopefully this orange is juicy and sweet, because we've got another key play. Turf pick 3 wraps up here. My 3rd and final pick here at a price is number 10, Redo, 15-1 in the morning line. I'm finishing with 30-1 and 15-1 in the final 2 races. You think you want to play a daily double, 210 to close things out at a 15% takeout? You might be taking out your meat in one aggressive swing right there and making yourself a winner for the meet if we can get 210 home to finish things up here. But I like Redo coming out of some better races. I thought the competition was pretty good down at Gulfstream, where this one was running on the turf. Out of the 11-hole 2 starts back, I thought that was a good race. The last one out in the synthetic is really hard to get a look at, but this horse continually outruns the odds. A tough post position 2 starts back. It doesn't get much easier here, but when you got Raylo Gutierrez and John Ortiz teaming up, they teamed up 5 times at the Keeneland Meet last year. They won 2 of them at some nice prices. I don't like the horses in here who are going to get bet. Number 2, Hidden Presence. What are you going to do? 6 starts, 3 seconds, 3/3. You've had a million chances to get it done. If this one wins, you just tip your cap and say, go on with it. Johnny V riding there for Graham Motion. Certainly a good post position, but I've got to try to beat that particular horse. Missoula, the 7 in here, Christophe Clement trains. This one coming off a 1 mile and an 1/8 race down at Gulfstream Park. Got an easy pace that day. It doesn't get any easier than 49-2, 114-2, and still got caught on the end. So I respect the connections, but I don't think you have to play Missoula at any short price. I think you can find a decent price in this particular spot and go for it. Mont St. Michael, a horse on the also eligible list. If that one draws in from post 13, I think you definitely want to watch that one. Brendan Walsh, 2nd-time starter, just kind of even in the debut. It's going to be a wide and tough post from out there, but Walsh is really, he's one of those guys. You talk about the trainers who could have a good meet who were off the radar, and I mentioned Cherie DeVoe and some of those late season trainers. Brendan Walsh isn't a name that like rolls off the tongue, but he was really, really, really good here the last year or so at Keeneland. He got off to an amazing start at the Gulfstream meet. If you start the championship meet at Gulfstream starting in December, he was rocking there for about a month or two. And then, then he cooled off a little bit. So let's see what he's got. Brendan Walsh, another guy too, Brian Lynch was the same way. Brian Lynch down at Gulfstream was insanity, like in December, January, the beginning of February. Now, did his barn cool off a little at the end of that meet? Maybe they're retooling back up. Brian Lynch might be a guy you want to see back here at Keeneland. His horses cycling back with, with some time off or aimed at Keeneland, maybe towards the end of that Gulfstream meet. Brian Lynch, Brendan Walsh, two other trainers maybe that you want to consider in there. All right, we're about almost at the 50-minute mark. These usually go 30, 35, 40 minutes. A little bit longer today, being the first one of the season. We'll get in our groove and tighten it up a little bit for you in future nights. Also, we don't have all the video and graphics and stuff each and every night that we do on this show with so many stakes races. But we're going to have a big show for you on Friday night for Saturday's card. Of course, Saturday's the big one with the Toyota Bluegrass featured among 5 stakes races, and all stakes pick 5. I think a phenomenal card on Saturday. You can also get my stats and trends are already up on the website for Saturday. We've looked ahead at that card for you already. I've not even glanced at Sunday yet. That'll be my next order of business to get through this first 3 days of racing. But Friday and Saturday picks and analysis are up there. We'll stay fluid, right? If we see something here on the Friday card that makes us want to change things up, then we'll talk about it tomorrow night as we preview that Saturday card. A last look at the picks. You can get all these selections at the Keeneland website in the Handicappers consensus section. You can get my stats and trends blog under the expert pick sections. Don't like to use the word expert for myself, but that's what they put on the website. That's where you find it in the navigation. If you want to get some information from me sent to your email inbox, be sure to join my Substack. It's free. These are just emails that are sent to you. It'll give you handicapping information, notices when things are posted, some exclusive information. You don't have to go fishing around for stuff as much, and it'll end up in your email inbox. And if you're on part of my Substack, then you also get information when it's not the Keeneland season or about racing all around the country. Of course, my Countdown to the Crown season now in its 19th year. You can check that out at countdowntothecrown.com. And the big weekend for the Triple Crown races, right? Saturday, we got the Bluegrass here at Keeneland. We got the Santa Anita Derby. We got the Wood Memorial. Should be fantastic. A big 3, pick 3 on Saturday. Give you a little advance on that. Those 3 Triple Crown prep races. We'll have a pick 3 wager. I believe 18% takeout, $3 minimum on that one. The big 3, pick 3 is back this Saturday. So put that into your handicapping coffers as you look ahead to the weekend. First post is at 1 o'clock. Be sure to check out today at Keeneland at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, where you get your first live look inside the track there at Keeneland each and every morning with Scott and Gabby as they get you set for the racing day. Weather going to be a big factor, whether you're watching this tonight or if you're checking out the archives tomorrow morning. It's going to be about updated conditions. Keep yourself flexible. If it's a softer turf course, look for some horses that have some foreign experience and some foreign pedigrees. I always say handicap the parentheses. Horses have parentheses in their names, usually have foreign breeding involved. That's usually a good sign for an off-turf course. And, of course, on wet tracks, on the main track, a couple key factors. If we do get a wet track on Friday, you always want to look for front-end speed on wet tracks, horses who have run well in the past on wet tracks, and horses who have run poorly on wet tracks in the past, toss them out. Past form is always the most important thing. Second most important thing to me then is to look at whether or not those horses have some early pace about them. And the last thing is pedigree, because right now, so much of the breeding, almost all these horses have some semblance of mud pedigree to them. So I'm not looking for anybody in terms of a pedigree play on an off track. Maybe you've got some good horses you like in the pedigree and you want to share in the comments section for an off track for some of the other fans. I'm going to wrap things up and call it a night here. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday edition of the Keeneland Look Ahead podcast for Ashlin Stakes Day on Friday, the 6th of April. We'll be back again 8:30 Eastern on Friday night to preview Bluegrass Day. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.